Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where every week we discuss the bills and issues happening down at the state capitol. This morning we're lucky to have with us Representative Ling Johanson, who is the chair of the Labor and Public Employment Committee. He also represents District 31, which is a long list of communities here: Moanalua, Red Hill, Foster Village, Aiea, Fort Shafter, Aliamanu, and Lower Pearl Ridge. Good morning, Representative, and thank you for being here.
Hi, James. Great to be here.
Thanks. This is the last week of the legislature. We sine die on Friday. But as we all know, the economy is still struggling and a lot of people still need help. One important way the legislature has been providing or is going to provide some support is through unemployment insurance. Can you explain what the lawmakers have done to give some support to those people collecting unemployment?
Sure. Right now, unfortunately, because of the state of the economy and so much closure due to COVID-19, unemployment checks sometimes are virtually the only form of income that a lot of our workers have had. Over several hundred thousand, definitely. I think the new number is about 200, closer to 250,000 workers are now unemployed, which means instead of receiving their paycheck, they're having to rely on unemployment benefits. And so it's a really critical way of keeping our local workers and their families afloat during this time. Thankfully, the federal government also created a version of this for people who were not covered under traditional unemployment, and that's called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA, and that benefit is extended to people who would have been left out in the cold under our normal unemployment insurance system. So that's very helpful, but we're also cognizant that the federal government benefits don't last forever, and the state will still be on the hook. So trying to look at ways of not only keeping the fund solvent and sustainable, but also how do we deal with when the federal government benefits run out and are eclipsed or do not continue. And as a result, I think one of the most innovative things the legislature has done in this past session that we're about to adjourn is to pass the extra $230 million appropriation in our CARES Act vehicle, which would extend state unemployment, the extra plus up $100 a week until December 31st, which is critical because everybody right now, there's sort of a false effect of people getting an extra $600 a week from the federal government, which is great for now, but that runs out July 31st. And so come August 1, if there's no safety net, which this is meant to be from a state perspective, people are going to see their benefits dramatically decline.
That's going to hurt them right in the pocketbook, but you're providing at least a little bonus. They'll collect their unemployment plus an extra $100 a week. Is that correct?
Right. So about $400 extra a month. And it's nowhere near what the federal government is providing, but the state doesn't have the luxury of just printing money like the federal government. So yeah, the federal government has a little bit more latitude in that department than we do.
Are we hopeful to get more federal support? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think we're hoping for that. But that's all up to Congress.
Oh, you're fading in and out there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I said depending on the day or the political cycle, it depends on whether Congress is getting along or not. So we'll have to wait and see. Every day there's sort of new developments. So we're hopeful, but we've planned accordingly in case they.
I see. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about is, as you volunteered to help with unemployment, to help them when they were really struggling, and people were so upset because they couldn't get through the system. It's an antiquated system and they were struggling. Why did you do that, and how did that come about that lawmakers and staff from the state capitol went to volunteer to help with this program?
Sure. Actually, it was a really innovative idea by the speaker and Chair Luke, the finance chair. They just decided that not enough was happening, progress was too slow, so they literally rolled up their sleeves and started demanding that the operation dramatically scale up. And that's how the convention center operation came to be. So several literally over one weekend, several hundred people, volunteers from HTA, HSTA, and UPA, the various executive branch departments, as well as the administration and the legislature stepped up to provide more than 600 volunteers on a weekly basis for fairly long shifts, all day long shifts,
Wow.
about 6, 7 at night. And one of the reasons I went is not just to answer the call of service, but I think as the labor chair, it's important to be right there in the trenches because that's a way that we can effectively provide legislative oversight and counsel. And there are instances where I think the department has benefited from this partnership with the legislature because we just see things differently. It's very easy to sort of know what your job is, know what your niche is, and know how it's always done. It can be a little bit more difficult to have an outside perspective to say, this isn't working, we need to retool, you need to think outside the box. And I think the department has tried very hard to adjust to a pandemic. I mean, no government agency, honestly, I think is that well equipped to deal with a pandemic of this nature. And there's certainly room for improvement.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're fading again there.
I know that they continue to try to improve, and so that's one of the things that I'm grateful for. Not just the opportunity to help people, but also the opportunity to help the department and help it, and in so doing, have a broader reach to help others.
It sounds like unemployment and supporting the whole system and the people has been a focus of some of what you've done this session.
Yes, yeah. I was there for quite a few months before we came back into this session. So, and I'll probably be back there once we're done with this session.
Well, another focus of yours in your community has been Senate Bill 2940, the Stadium Economic Recovery Act. I don't think a lot of people understand that very well. Could you tell us what's involved there?
Sure. So, most people know of the stadium either from athletic events or going to the swap meet or going to the 50th State Fair. But for most of its life cycle, the stadium campus, the 98 acres that comprise all of Aloha Stadium's property, are relatively vacant and fallow. One of the most innovative things I think the legislature did last session and has continued to build on this session is to create the Stadium Development District, which is looking at making the stadium into an economic generator and an actual community. So instead of just a stadium that's only used for high school graduations and competitions and UH athletic events, it's meant to make the stadium the anchor piece of a broader community that encompasses, commercial, retail, residential, recreational facilities like parks. So not only is that going to, I think, be a real economic generator in these times in terms of construction and necessary, I think it's a really terrific way to reweave the fabric of community that much of this infrastructure in my district has artificially sort of bifurcated. It's separated a lot of communities through artificially constructed barriers, and really looking forward to how that's going to connect Aiea and the end of Honolulu, the westernmost part of Honolulu, together once again, in addition to generating needed jobs and revenue for the state.
It's so exciting, the potential out there, just what could happen. And I'm really looking forward to what we end up with.
Yeah, it's not just going to be a parking lot anymore.
Well, on a somewhat sadder note, today is the memorial service for Senator Breen Harimoto, who I know was an adjacent to your district, and his memorial is 11 a.m. on Alelo Channel 49 today. What are your thoughts about the passing of the senator?
He was just a genuinely decent human being, and not just decent, but truly a nice guy. My section of Aiea overlapped his district, both when he was in the council, but also in the Senate. And, even when he disagreed with you, he was just the nicest person. And I recall an event once where another legislator was basically publicly saying he was wrong at a public meeting. And I'll never forget it. I've never seen someone shake their head no, but also simultaneously be smiling, just a really genuine smile that says, no, you're totally wrong. But it was, the nicest form of disagreement I've ever seen. And sometimes, especially nowadays in politics, it can be difficult to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's one of Breen's strongest legacies, honestly, is actually that he kept his humanity and his civility, and just was such a kind, nice person. Sometimes in a field that doesn't engender that kind of.
Yeah, we need more people like that, not just in politics, but in the world. He was a good man.
He was, and he will be missed.
We only have a little time left, but I wanted to ask you about the effects of the coronavirus in your community. Some people are starting to get fatigued, they say, by not wearing their masks and not following the rules. What have you seen in your residential area?
I think because most of my communities were created in the late 50s, early 60s, we have a large elderly population. And so much of my district is very careful about honoring our seniors and making sure, out of respect for them, that we abide by, the wearing of masks and social distancing. But where I've seen the fatigue a little bit more with COVID-19, we also have a lot of small businesses in our district because there's so much infrastructure, and a lot of retail is centered around that infrastructure. There's just a lot of business owners who are hurting. So, I'm hopeful that Congress will take up some additional relief there. It's something that probably the state is going to need to continue to look at, how we can help our small business owners, because that's quite honestly where I see it. And a lot of the small business owners who work in my district and own their business in my district actually also live in the district. So, it's not just off in the distance. It's looming large for all these people and me.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching Live at the Legislature. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.